All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rodney Fisher.
And I'm Lauricia Evans.
And we are college and career development specialists
From Solano County Office of Education.
So we also have Kimberly Lane, who's also with Solano County Office of Education. She'll be the moderator, so she'll be behind the scenes. And we also have Ken Scarberry, who's with the Academic Decathlon Interview, who will be here to answer some more deeper questions that we have for you guys, okay?
And he's also with Solano County Office of Ed, if you didn't know.
Yeah, so this is brought to you by Solano County Office of Education.
Clearly.
All right, so I'm going to take over. Lauricia is going to step to the side real fast.
For part two.
All right. So welcome in, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. You know, the weather is a lot better. So I'm going to jump right into it. Our purpose that we're here today is basically to prepare you guys for this interview. We're going to give you some tips as well, so you can be best prepared for it and do your best job. So basically, you're doing this interview, so you have another opportunity to showcase your communication skills. How the interview is going to go is basically you'll get 7 minutes. There will be 2 to 3 judges. You'll be assigned a room, and you'll also be assigned a time. All right, they'll ask you some predetermined questions that you'll already be prepared for. And then we're going to give you some tips outside of answering questions as far as like mannerisms, your voice tone, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So here are the interview topics. All right. So these interview topics is limited to these interview topics. So you won't get asked anything outside these topics right here. We're going to kind of go over some of the topics, and then we also have a few other things that we're going to go over as far as the topic. So the biggest thing I want you guys to realize is that when you get asked a question, when it's pertaining to these topics, you want your answer to pertain to these topics. You want it to relate to these topics and relate to the question. All right. So we're going to move on to the goals. All right. You're going to have your own set of goals as far as the interview, but these are 4 goals you definitely want to make sure you hit on. So first one, answer questions concisely. All right. Present ideas and responses that are appropriate. Establish and maintain rapport, and then listen and smile. All right. I want to touch on a couple of them real fast because they're very important. All right. You want to make sure you answer the question fully. Sometimes you'll get asked a question and you get to rambling, and before you know it, you didn't even answer the question. All right. So the first thing is answer the question and make sure your answer relates directly to the question. Now, the second part of the question is if there's a 2-part question, you have to answer both parts of the question. Just because you gave a really good answer for the first part and you didn't give an answer for the second part doesn't mean you did good on the question. All right. So you really need to listen. That's the listening part. So you can fully communicate your answer. And the reason why you need to smile is imagine if you're walking down the street or you're in the store, you're just out in the public and you walk past a person, a stranger, and they're just mugging you and just mean mugging you. Are you going to speak to that person? Probably not. But if they smile, almost automatically what you do is smile right back. And it's like an invitation. It's like a greeting. So come off as friendly, come off as confident. All right. So there are 10 key elements to the interview. These 10 key elements are very important because you'll be graded on each element from a scale of 0 to 10, and 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. All right. The best part about this is we're going to go over each element and give you some tips on how you can be successful in each element. All right. So remember, before we get into this, remember, this is a conversation. Don't look at the interview as this, uptight stuff and you got to be really nervous. No, relax. Because when you talk to your friends, when you talk to your teacher, when you talk to your parents, you don't be nervous. You be relaxed and you can have a conversation. Now, of course, you want to be professional, but always remember, this is just a conversation. All right. So these are the 10 elements: voice, language usage, interpersonal skills, nonverbal language, manner, listening skills, answering skills, responses, overall effectiveness, and appearance. All right. So first element that we're going to talk about is voice. Voice is very important because you can have all the right things to say, but if you don't say it the right way, the meaning and the impact is not as powerful. All right. So like if you're mumbling, yeah, you might have said a good answer, but if you're mumbling, you can't hear it. Or if you're talking too loud, you feel like you're yelling, you can't focus on the answer. Or if you're talking too fast, it seems like you're very nervous. If you're talking too slow, the interviewer might get bored. But your voice should have a variety in tone, volume, and pitch. All right. And you want to engage the interviewer. You want to hold their attention. All right. So for example, I'm going to give you an example of tone real fast. So if I get asked a question, what is something that is a passion of yours? And I answer like this: I really like basketball. It doesn't really seem like I like basketball. It doesn't seem like I really want to be here for the interview. It doesn't really seem like I care. But let's see if I answer it like this: what is the passion of yours? And I answer basketball. I would really have to say basketball is a passion. I love basketball. It's like the best thing ever, blah, 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 right? You can see the smile on my face. You can feel the excitement. And that's the biggest thing. When you talk in an interview, you want them to feel the words that are coming out. So if I'm feeling excitement, you want them to feel excitement. If I'm feeling confident, you want them to feel that confidence. Whatever you're feeling and saying, it has to have meaning and power behind it. And it's not just what you're saying, it's how you say it. It's the way you say it. All of that matters. All right. So the 3 tips I'm gonna leave you with when it comes to voice is speak clearly, control your volume, distinctive voice. All right. Now I'm going to wait before I pass it over to Lauricia. Is there anyone or is there any questions in the chat or anything like that? Because if you guys have any questions, you can put it into the chat and we'll stop every now and then to answer your questions. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick 30 seconds to put any questions in the chat and we'll answer them real fast. But if we don't have any questions, we'll just move right along. All right.
It appears that we don't have any questions at this time.
No questions at this time. All right. So I'm going to pass it over. Here we go.
Hi. So we are going to move it right along to the next slide. And like Rodney said, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we will answer them. That's the cool thing about doing this live. So let's talk about language usage. Your language should promote a clear understanding of thoughts and be appropriate for the occasion. Okay, so promoting a clear understanding of thought means that you want to speak clearly and you want to use the right words. Because of the fact that you guys are not doing a speech, you're doing an interview, it can be hard to practice because it's not like you're going over one thing line by line. But I do recommend that you get in the mirror and ask yourself a question that you think that the judges will ask you based off of those topics that we mentioned in the earlier portion of the slideshow. Whatever you think that a judge would ask you, get in the mirror, practice your answer. Make sure that you are using appropriate language, that you're not using like everyday language that you would use with a friend. You want to stay more academic because why? This is the Academic Decathlon. And for those of you who heard of a thing called code switching, is when you use a different type of language for different situations. It's kind of like, I wouldn't use every pitch of voice or every kind of vocabulary with my friends that I would use with my supervisor. With my supervisor, they might get a slightly perkier version of me with more proper grammar. With my friends, hey, what's up? You don't have to be as perky and as proper because they already know who you are. You're not trying to present yourself in a professional way because hopefully they love you the way you are. But when you're out here and you're trying to present yourself to someone who doesn't know you, you want to make sure that you use your language properly. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And let's talk about interpersonal skills. Your responses, I'm sorry, the words are a little small. Your responses should correspond to and interact with the interviewer's questions. Conversation should stimulate an involvement with the interviewer. So make sure that if you are going to go into detail when you chat, make sure that you answer the question first. So for example, if someone says, what's your favorite hobby and why? Start off with what your favorite hobby is, not, oh, you know, I love to go out to the store and buy all the yarn to crochet because I love to crochet. I answered that backwards. It would be first, I love to crochet, and I also love going out to the store to buy the yarn for my crochet hobby. So you want to make sure that you answer it in the order that you were asked, because your interpersonal skills is just a way of saying, this is my special bag of tricks for how I interact with people. My confidence when I speak with them, my clarity, my emotional intelligence, which is kind of that awareness when maybe you've offended somebody or said something that maybe didn't sit quite right. It's all of those things and those skills in one big bag that are called your interpersonal skills, and that's about how you interact with them. And if you have interact with them, meaning your interviewer, and if you have really good interpersonal skills, then it'll show, right? So it's not just one thing, it's a multitude of things, and hopefully you get a lot of that knowledge and or improvement of the knowledge you already have from this slideshow. Non-verbal language. This is a really good one because there are some of us out there that talk a lot with our face or our hands or other parts of our body. So nonverbal language, speak with enthusiasm and assurance, showing interest in the interviewers and confidence in your responses, right? So gestures, facial expressions, your physical movements, all of that makes a difference. So I'm going to ask Rodney to shrink the screen for just a moment. And we're going to, I'm going to give you an example of some nonverbal language. Are we ready? So you can come to actually do the example. Like, go ahead and give us a gesture of some nonverbal body language.
Oh. That good?
Does he look interested or does he look rather relaxed? I would say he looks more relaxed, possibly uninterested. What's the way to show somebody if you're, angry? You look angry. Or he did a minute ago, but immediately when he smiled, you can see that, okay, he's actually in a pretty good mood. But I mean, if I'm standing with you and I'm talking to you and I'm like, you would assume that we were having an argument just now, because that did not look good. So you can see just how little gestures and little movements can make a big difference in the way an onlooker perceives the conversation or someone who's in the conversation with you. Thanks, Rodney. So now if you have any questions about that or anything is unclear, you can go ahead and drop that in the chat and we're going to move on to the next slide. All right, listening skills. We're back online. Thank you, Tech Rodney. Listening skills refers to the ability to analyze and interpret what is being asked. Responses to the questions will give an indication of the level of attention. These are both really good points because if you're not answering the questions properly, someone might think that you're not listening. So being able to really have the ability to listen and respond well, both of those things together gives the interviewer an indicator of how well you're listening, how well you comprehend, and of course, your ability to answer questions. Listen carefully and attentively. And showing attentiveness is also important too. Because like we were talking about, gestures are everything. So someone will know if you're listening attentively, if you're looking them in the face and you're not checking your phone and doing things like that. That's all a part of listening skills. And if for some reason you feel a little nervous and you have twitches or, you're a fidget person when you're nervous and you're talking to someone, there's always ways to disguise that. You can sit or, you guys are probably going to be sitting. So even when you're sitting, if you toe tap within your shoe, that's a way to get your body moving and maybe get out the fidgets without people knowing. What you don't want to do is tap your whole foot because then that would distract the interviewer. But you can do little things like if you have your hands folded in front of you, maybe you're massaging the inside of your palm. There are ways for you to disguise the fidgets, and especially for those of you who fidgeting helps you listen a little better, you can totally fidget on the low. You just have to make sure that it's not distracting from the interview and nobody can really see you doing it. And if you're unsure of how to do that, again, get in that mirror and practice, 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 and see what you can see when you look at you, sitting down and standing up. So we're going to go to the next slide, which is answering skills. A well thought out answer engages the interviewer's attention and gives insight into the candidate's personal qualities, skills, goals, and experiences. All information presented should be relevant to the question being asked. So it should address the question being asked directly, and information, I'm sorry, I cannot see the little blocks there, but as long as you, as the viewer, can see it, we're good. But make sure to present your information in a clear and concise manner as well. I think that this is kind of tying back to some things we've already talked about with being able to pay attention, answer the question, and then also with being concise. You don't want to go on too long because then you forget what they asked. They probably will forget what they asked, and you kind of forget how to answer. So make sure that if you're giving details to anything, you want to be clear and concise. Concise means trim it down, stick to the point. Don't go all off on tangents about one time at band camp, okay? We want you to just kind of, don't be too brief, no yes or no answers, but don't go way back to, you know, like kindergarten. Responses. Focus on providing thoughtful and insightful quality responses to the question. A well thought out answer engages the interviewer's attention and gives insight into the interviewer's personal qualities, skills, goals, and experiences. So that's something else that you can practice, is having a good response, because you do want to give the judges an idea of who you are as a person so that your personality can show. We don't want you to just be a robot in front of the interviewer. And that's for any interview, whether it's college, whether it's for a job, or just the Academic Decathlon. We want you to really be able to let your character show. So make sure that you do practice a couple of responses and that your responses are they're clear and they're thought out and they're concise and that they represent your truest self. I will say, if you're unsure of some responses in general, you want to stay away from controversial topics such as religion or politics. Things that you think would really be divisive, I would kind of stay away from that. And just stick to the things that are more general and basic about yourself, and that will show you in a more positive light. Are there any questions before we go on? Do we have any questions in the chat?
You know, I think there were a couple of questions related to if we could get a little bit of comment on the nature of the questions and the way the questions would be structured so that they could avoid some of the conversations that you discussed. So the types of topics that would be avoided during the interview process by the interviewers, the judges.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Ken Scarberry to step in on this one, because the judges will not ask you certain things. And since he is coordinating the event, he can speak better to that.
Hey, thank you. Yes, the judges, in order to protect themselves from asking questions that may be on the offensive side, but also to protect you, the decathlete, and your personal perspectives, is we pre-select a series of questions, and then the judges are told that they have that list of questions to pick from. And so that protects both decathlete as well as the judge. These questions, if you refer back to the very beginning of the training, are really in general talking about topics before school, after school, during school, hobbies, future plans, things that will engage you to engage into that conversation. So you should not have anything that you feel uncomfortable answering. And if you do have a question that comes to you that's uncomfortable, then you just have to let the judges know that you're really not comfortable answering that question, and that can you have another question to respond to? They should be able to respect that, and then you can immediately report to your coach after leaving the interview room. to let them know that you were asked a particular type of question. We'll take care of it from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
So moving on to overall effectiveness, you want to ask yourself, was your purpose achieved? Did you keep them interested? What was your reception? Do you think it went well? Do you think you could have done better? And even though you won't get like another interview, you can always improve for the next time. So think about the nature of information you provided, the manner you communicated the information, and the overall impression you created. Questions to ask yourself: did you establish a rapport, a good relationship? And was the information you shared relevant and meaningful? So make sure that you do share relevant and meaningful information, even though you're going to be asked about basic things. So if you're going to be asked about stuff that you do at school, maybe talk about, times when you were in leadership, times when, you helped with a complicated situation and you helped to do something that resolved it or made it better. So think about the quality of the answers that you're going to be giving in order to make your interview overall effective. Appearance. This one is so heavy. I'm going to ask Rodney to step back up here and help with this one. So with the appearance, it has to be appropriate for an interview. Ensure that you have appropriate attire for the interview following the U.S. Academic Decathlon and dress standards, which we're going to give you a link to. And do not wear distracting apparel such as hats, caps, ripped clothing, etc. So you want to talk to us a little bit more about what distracting clothing may be?
So distracting clothing, right now I know rips in jeans or maybe bleaches in jeans and very bright colors. All of those things are distracting. So you want to stay away from anything that you think will take away from focusing on your answers and your interview. So bright neon colors like bright pink and bright green and bright blue, red, probably will stay away from those colors. As far as a shirt, you're wearing a collar will always be safe. You will never be penalized if you have a collar on. You want to have some nice dress pants or dress jeans, darker preferably. And then as far as shoes, the same way. If you have some dress shoes with a nice little point to it, that'll work. But if you just have some shoes that are darker color, and also what's distracting is stains. And you don't want it to be eating on your way there and you drop a stain on your shirt.
I'm bad with stains.
Yeah, me too. And you also don't want to have wrinkles in your clothes. Lauricia, I do see that someone is asking, what about nail color? So I'll let you handle this one.
I would say, I know nails can be really expensive, but I would say stay away from the really super duper long nails with all of the crystals and things like that on there. Anything that could take away from the attention being on you while you're talking. So that also goes for things like facial piercings. If you have a lot of piercings on your face, like maybe you got 3 eyebrow piercings and a lip ring, you might want to consider removing 1 or 2 of those, or you might want to consider a smaller version of what you have. That's why they make bars, people. So I would say anything that you think would be a distraction. If you absolutely just spent $1 million getting your nails done, then maybe when you sit down, you kind of, can keep your hands out of focus. But if you have not spent the billions that nails cost nowadays, I would not get the super duper long eccentric nails for an interview. Absolutely not.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. We have another chat, and that was how long should long hair be put up?
I would say that if you have long hair, and it doesn't matter like what style, what you want to do is make sure that the majority of it is pulled out of your face. So if you have a swoop and it's blocking a whole eye, then we are missing half of our eye contact, right? So that's why we always recommend that to be professional, you want to pull the hair out of your face, because as we talked about earlier, gestures are important, facial expressions. So anything that's going to take away from us being able to make eye contact, from being able to see your face fully, we want you to be able to be seen. So I would pull your hair back, or even if your hair is down and it's longer, if it's tucked behind your ears even. We just need to be able to see your face.
And I wanted to touch on a couple things too. So thank you.
Mhm.
I also wanted to touch on graphics. So as far as, because there are collared shirts or nice pants or nice shirts that have graphics on it, I would stay away from graphics. I would keep it nice and plain. Like even me, the Nike sign, the small Nike sign is fine, but anything that's big and taking up your whole shirt or distracting, I wouldn't do it. All right. And then I want to touch on tattoos because I know more and more high schoolers are having tattoos, and it's becoming more of a thing. We're moving more to a progressive new era where tattoos are acceptable. For me personally, I still try my best to cover my tattoos. Like right now, you probably can't really see any tattoos. Maybe a
You
little
have
bit.
tattoos?
Exactly. And so for me, I hide my tattoos, but tattoos should not cause any harm to your interview.
Right. And I would say, like, unless you have something offensive written, if you have something offensive written on you somewhere visible, you might want to cover that definitely. But also, I just want to mention that we know that it's kind of hard having professional clothes if you've never had a job where you've had to wear professional clothes. So this is why we are giving tips on how to make even more casual clothes business casual. So make everything darker, plain, no phrases and stuff on front. But then also, if you'd like to check out trying to buy something, you can always try a thrift store because they are going to have a lot of business stuff there cheaper. And also, it goes without saying, we want to make sure we stay appropriate. So no cleavage, no ankles. I know, like, if you get a suit, that's a whole thing right now. It's a vibe with your ankles showing, but it's too cold for that anyway. It's flooding. No ankles, no cleavage, right? We want to keep it professional, not sexy.
Yes.
We have another question in the chat. If you could comment on would wearing a mask during the interview affect the appearance portion of the rubric scoring?
That's a great question. I am going to have Ken answer that. And also if he could speak to handshaking, because we had a question the other day about whether or not to shake hands in an interview, which has changed. Before, it was always like customary to do that. But since we've had COVID, that's changed. So I'm going to let Ken speak to that.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Regarding masking, due to what has occurred in the previous years, if you feel comfortable with a mask, we're going to be letting judges know that should not be counted against you. It's a safety precaution as well. We will address that with the judges. However, please understand, and you'll hear it time and time again, this is a human judging subjective competition. So no matter how much training we will provide the judges, judges will still score based upon certain biases and things of that sort. So we do our utmost to train them so that they understand certain things should not be included in the score. So a mask is acceptable and they will understand that. However, it goes back to the team presenting saying, hey, make sure that the mask is not offensive. Make sure the mask doesn't cover your entire face. Make sure that it is an appropriate and respectable covering due to the pandemic. Now, you will be sitting probably within 2 to 3 feet away from your judges. So that does give you even more of a reason, if you feel comfortable, to wear your mask. Okay. Handshaking, that was a really great one to bring up, because we're going to discourage the judges from shaking hands, making actual contact, just due to the past pandemic issue. So there's other ways that you can actually greet your judges. There will be no score against you if you do not extend a hand to the judges. And if the judges extend a hand to you, there will be no penalty if you choose not to shake their hand, and vice versa. But I'm wondering if you guys could potentially give them some samples of how you can acknowledge and greet a judge or the judges as a decathlete walking into the room. I think that there was a couple ways with the nodding of heads, and you can do other things with your hands as well.
Awesome. So we can do that.
Yeah.
All right. Who's gonna walk in the room? Walk in?
Yeah, you can walk in.
Okay, I'll walk in. I'll be right back.
So am I the judge?
Sure.
I'm the judge.
So if I'm walking in the room and I don't want to shake hands, a nod is perfectly acceptable. Or
Let's show them.
am I not on camera? Well, you know what, then the nod doesn't matter when I'm not on camera,
You were
right?
on camera.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right, so now that I'm on camera, it's perfectly acceptable to nod. And you kind of want to make it a little bit pronounced so that they know that it's an official acknowledgement. Some people, I've even seen them do this one, you know, it's just a personal preference. But what you don't want to do is this, because this, for whatever reason, is universally what's up. So the nod goes down, not up. It goes up for homies, down for interviews, okay? All right. Are there any other questions or anything else you want to add about appearance?
We don't have any questions in the chat either.
All right, moving right along. We are almost to the end of our presentation. Actually, we are at the end of our presentation. So prepare and practice, relax and breathe, and enjoy the experience. This is about growth and development, although it's a competition, because the skills that you learn at the Academic Decathlon will follow you into other areas like we talked about earlier, interviews, you know, applying for school and having to speak with folks about scholarships or whatnot. So make sure you take the moments to practice, prepare, and just enjoy, right? You have anything to add?
My final comments to you is the biggest way to have confidence and feel good about this is to practice and prepare, like we keep saying. It's just like a test. If you don't study for a test, you don't come into that test feeling confident. If you study really hard for that test, you come into that test feeling really good about yourself. And it's the same with this interview. Confidence is linked with preparation. All right. So enjoy this experience. It's fun. Like Lauricia said, it's going to help you later in life, even if you don't win. And overall, good luck because we're rooting for you.
Woo! And also,
We have I'm
Oh,
sorry, we have
wait.
one other question that just came in.
okay,
What
we're here for it.
Related to appearance, what about ties?
So well, I'm assuming the question is, can they wear ties or should they wear a tie?
Yes.
I don't think it's anything wrong with wearing a tie.
Take it up a notch.
Yeah, it shows formal, especially coming from a high school student. But I'll let Ken further elaborate just to make sure we're on the right track.
You guys have done a wonderful job. The idea that a tie does step it up a notch if you can, but you can certainly wear a polo like Rodney too and be able to step it up a notch as long as the outfit is appropriate. And it does not, like you guys said, take away from the appearance of the face and the recognition of acknowledgement of the judges. They want to see you and they do not want to be distracted. So if you bring a tie to the game, make sure that you wear it properly. If you don't wear it properly, that could be very distracting and they'll stare at that rather than actually hear you with what you're saying in your interview. So again, can't stress this enough. You have human beings trained to judge you in an interview that they'll be asking you questions on. So you just have to understand and be prepared for that. And so, Lauricia, Rodney, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Ken.
Awesome. So good luck to everyone. And what you're seeing on your screen is the QR code. And I don't know if they're going to drop a link in the chat. Looks like they are dropping a link in the chat. Both of these are going to take you to a folder with the official Academic Decathlon guidebook, the rules and regulations. So you'll be able to have a look at it yourself. And if you have any questions, there is Ken's address at the bottom. So are there any other questions or anything else?
I am not seeing any additional questions.
All right, awesome. So good luck to you guys. So this is that Saturday, January 28th is the Academic Decathlon at Solano Community College. Wishing you the best and hopefully this was helpful.
We're rooting for you.
Woo, woo.
See you
guys
later.
have a great afternoon.